Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. Excuse me. There's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout of thanks and appreciation to Fearless Mangus, Smith Tools and Purchase, Level Playing for Her, Vitali Z, Colton James, BG, Effie Patriot, Thomas van der Zander, Measured Flat, Chris Wouters, Mir in the Shire, Mitch Kennedy, Rod, the name's Burley, Jason Hornsby, JMels24, Unimento, Iron26, Endless, Retro Bill, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Del West Watson, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Chow Young Cat, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Links to Patreon are below this video. And with that, I will hand across to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
One about vitamin C and causing scurvy. Have you ever heard him say that?
Did he use that as a naturally occurring phenomena stuff?
He used it as an example of what a valid hypothesis is. And it said, like, vitamin C deficiency is the cause of scurvy. I don't remember exactly how it went verbatim, but it sounded, when I first heard him say it, I felt kind of confused because it sounded like biology. And then it's like, is biology science?
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah. So,
that one always.
My power
That one always. Oh no, that's not good. See, that one with the whole scurvy thing, like it always kind of confuses me a little bit because I'm thinking, if all the humans were to just vanish, then how would scurvy be a thing? But I don't know. I don't know everything. I get confused about a lot of shit.
I don't know. As far as again, that's a difference in how you experiment, how you would do a valid experiment versus what are natural laws and the nature of our reality. Well, my power just glitched out, and thankfully I was on the phone instead of on the desktop, because otherwise I'd be gone.
You getting stormy weather today?
No, it just decided to glitch. It sometimes does that out here in the country. We get our power outages when it's nice out.
I was going to say, you get your electricity by putting your goats on a big hamster wheel?
Natural laws are descriptions.
Yeah, it works.
Scientific method explains how and why. So if you want to explain something, that's the cause of an effect. You're discussing scurvy, right? That's an effect. People have scurvy. That's an effect. Something's happening to them. Biology comes under the branch of physics. So it's absolutely governed by the scientific method. That effect, scurvy, can be studied by putting it through the scientific method. That's to say, you observe natural phenomena. People come back with scurvy. Then you say, I wonder what caused that. So you start varying and manipulating your presumed cause of the effect. Lack thereof, when it comes to vitamin C, is the cause of scurvy. But you can vary and manipulate that which you assume to cause the effect and see if it induces the effect or not. So it is adhering to the establish a phenomena, then formulate a causal influencing relationship with an if and then statement. Alongside it, you have a null, zero difference result. And then you just put it through the method by varying and manipulating that which you assume will cause the effect to see if it causes the effect or not. Unlike natural law, where natural law is simply a description of that which occurs always. So if you talk about dispersion, gas dispersion, that's a description of something occurring. It's not an explanation of why it occurs.
Oh, see, that's where I get like I was under, and again, I'm probably incorrect, but I always used to like scratch my head about the scurvy thing because I'm thinking I thought the natural phenomenon had to like be completely dependent, like independent of human involvement. Like, so I was always kind of thinking, well, if someone gets scurvy, that means a human got scurvy, which means that it was kind of like you have to have humans for the scurvy to exist.
I know. So what's
But
excluded is synthetic effects. That would be to say you already know the cause of a synthetic effect, and man has made it. Now, man didn't make
right,
scurvy happen. That's a naturally occurring phenomenon that occurs to people naturally. So in nature, scurvy is something that we experience naturally. It's not induced by man. It's not a synthetic effect. So if you say, why did this man lose his arm in the bread cutting machine? That's a synthetic effect. You know why? A man made it. That's why. But with scurvy, that's something that will occur naturally if you don't have enough vitamin C. Now, I've obviously spoiled the ending if you're going to put it through the method, but this is pretty well established.
okay,
So if it's
no, that makes
synthetic,
perfect sense to me now. I get it.
so synthetic
Yeah, that
effects
does make more
are
sense.
not part of the scientific method because you already know the cause. A man caused it if it's synthetic.
So, do you think you could basically use the same idea to say that, like, if I sniff pepper, then I'll sneeze? Like, the sneeze is a naturally occurring phenomenon, something that happens to us. And if I smell pepper, then I'll very likely sneeze. Is that something?
I mean,
Can
it's
that
very
be
rough
put
around the
in the?
edges, but I mean, I suppose you could call that a phenomena. It's pretty weak. You already know what's causing the effect straight off the bat. It's more for things that you don't know what's causing them. Yeah. So in this case, we need to figure out what causes this because if we don't, people die. Therefore, it's imperative to find out the cause of the effect before more people die. But you said, well, biology. I thought that was biology. Well, biology falls under physics. Physics is the study of the physical and natural world. We are natural within that context. People and what occurs to us is biology. But biology also falls under physics. It's the study of the physical and natural world. It's only synthetic effects that you don't put through the scientific method because you already know the cause. A man made it.
All right.
Did I publish
That
the link
makes a
in?
little more sense to
Are
me.
any of you guys in Master B? Did I? Oh no, I didn't publish it. There we go. I put it in Master B and didn't actually press the send button.
Okay, so yeah, okay, so the whole synthetic, okay, that explains perfectly then, because I was always a little confused about, well, how can scurvy be a naturally observed phenomenon when it requires? But yeah, it's something that okay, yeah, it's not synthetic. It's not getting your arm caught in the door of like a like getting your finger chopped off by slamming it in the door. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, that would be very much a synthetic effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if people
Okay,
just
no, that makes sense. Okay, so that makes it a little easier then. Okay, cool.
But if people just come back from sea and their fingers are falling off, that's a different matter. You'd want to know why, right?
Right. Right.
So getting back to the butterfly migration, is the difference between studying the butterfly migration and physics just a matter of, I mean, it's still science, but you can't put butterfly migration through the scientific method. But it's
I don't know if you could.
but it's still
I would say
science.
that's a
It's still
phenomenon.
studied.
That's a phenomenon that you could suggest could be put through the method and have cause and effect reasoning. Why is this happening? Anything that's occurring in nature, an occurrence, a happening. Yeah? An effect. That's what your step one is. Observe natural phenomenon occurring. That's your first step. So if it's something happening in nature, then yeah. The things that don't go through the scientific method are concrete nouns. The whats and the ises. So if you've got something like a shape, that's not something happening. So people say, oh, ball. I'll put through the scientific... No, ball's not something happening, is it?
No, but you can't have variables and dependent variables with butterfly migration, can you?
Yeah, well, yeah.
You might be able to find one.
Dependent variable would be the butterfly migration. That's something occurring that you can observe in nature and then say, I wonder what caused that to happen. So, yeah, you could. But if you say, if you describe an aspect of the ground, its flatness, the ground's flatness isn't something happening. Yeah?
Nope, correct.
SciManDans would say.
And we're going to cover that today. So one deck has come up with an idea.
Yeah, yay!
Rather than addressing these scumbag glur flyers, why not just go to a more mainstream source and just reference that, rather than trying to unpick the doublespeak and lies? So when I saw my face on Dan's thumbnail with words in quotes that I have not said, immediately I'm just frustrated by Dan's propensity and requirement to lie through his back teeth. So the words on SciManDans' thumbnail, in quotes, in front of my face, I haven't said, making Dan a demonstrable liar. Now, do I want to cover how much of a liar Dan is? Because that makes it personal to me, the things that I haven't said that he's put in quotes on his thumbnail. Immediately, I don't want to cover it. Now, what I have said is SciManDans, specifically, has measured Earth flat thousands of times. Over 1,000 times, according to him. He's measured elevation angles. So what we will do today is go to a PhD who describes what an elevation angle is, with more subs and more views than Dan. Rather than saying, look, Dan's saying, Nathan said, in quotes, and then words that have not crossed my lips. Why should I have to cover Dan and his egregious use of lies when suggesting things haven't been debunked when I'm agreeing with him? Dan has measured Earth and its flat surface for elevation angles to the sun. That's what he's done. I'm agreeing with him. Well done, Dan. You measured Earth flat 1,000 times. Are those the words in quotes? No. Dan just has to lie about things I haven't said. So why bother covering this scumbag, glurf liar? What's the point when we can just define what he's measured 1,000 times? That's an elevation angle. So that's what we'll do.
I like it. Go right to the professionals.
Yeah.
Let's see how they do it.
There's only one way to measure an angle. It's two straight lines meeting at a vertex. That's what he's measuring 1,000 times. Angles. Elevation angles, quite specifically. Now, we can define them 6 ways from Sunday, but better to have a PhD do it with a diagrammatical example of how flat Earth gets measured with an elevation angle. One of them's on screen right now. This isn't the video we'll be covering, but we will cover it and point out, here's how SciManDans has measured Earth flat 1,000 times. There's no way Dan's going to put what I actually say in quotes. He must lie to his audience, who are stupid. SciManDans' audience are thick. And they're not going to cross-reference any single word that comes out of Dan's mouth. Even the contradictions about how this, on screen, that's an elevation angle measurement from a flat baseline, gets measured 1,000 times by Dan and his audience. So putting different words that I haven't said in quotes on his thumbnail is Dan's way of going about things. You've got to lie to be a globe believer. You can't just address the fact I've said Dan's measured Earth flat 1,000 times with elevation angles. End quote Nathan Oakley about 500 million times. That's how many times I've said it. Maybe just make some crap up, right, Dan? That's what you've got to do if you're in the horrible, sad, awful position of believing you're on a globe and then measuring Earth flat 1,000 times. You've got to make up words that your opponent hasn't said. That's what you got to do. Lie. I'll be right back. There's lots of machine noise going on with my wife making me coffee. How do I sound, by the way? I'm on my backup microphone.
Sounds good.
Sounds
they
good.
got a double standard. I was listening the other day, and that guy Mez kept saying, yeah, the picture looks curved to me. That's fine. He's looking at a curved picture, and he accepts it. But then when you're showing him that the graph is flat, why isn't he accepting that?
Because he's coping.
I was like, this guy's funny, man. He's like telling us to look at a picture because that's what they all do. All they got to do is see a picture of a globe, and that's it. It's a globe, therefore glob.
He ain't ready to accept that what he's calling a globe is just a projection of flat Earth measurements plotted on the celestial sphere correlate with measurements from the plane of reference. He ain't ready for that.
I'm just happy about getting that scurvy thing cleared up, because now it makes perfect sense on why it is valid to put it through the scientific method, because it's not a synthetic, it's not getting your arm trapped in a machine or having somebody stab you. It's not a synthetic event. It's a natural event that you don't know the answer to. Because that always tripped me up. I was always confused about the whole scurvy thing being a valid example. But now
Really?
like the penny dropped, and I'm like, okay, great. Now I totally understand why it is valid. On a much more simpler scale, it's kind of like thinking of like petroleum seepage. Like, if you're out in the middle of the desert in Saudi Arabia, and all of a sudden the soil, like the sand is like black, and you stick your hand in there and it's filled with like oil. That's a naturally occurring phenomenon, but a oil spill like the Exxon Valdez is not. So, which, I mean, we've all knew that, the difference between that anyway, but it's still kind of the same thing between scurvy and getting punched in the nose and breaking your nose. Like, why your nose is now broken, but you didn't know why you were getting scurvy. So if that's all I take from the day, then it's a good day.
What is the distinction necessary? Like, what was the argument being made that was an issue?
It wasn't that. It was just confusion on my part, because like scurvy is something that happens to an individual. So I was always under the impression that the naturally observed phenomenon, or the naturally occurring phenomenon, would have to take place whether humans are here or not. And since scurvy is dependent on individual humans, I was always confused why that was considered valid. But like I said, once Nathan went over how it's a naturally occurring event, it's not a synthetic event, then it made sense. It was just something I was personally just tripped up on.
And for my
Our
part,
body.
I was always caught up on just the scientific method. Is what you're talking about, can it have a dependent and independent variable, and can you manipulate the independent variable? And it didn't seem possible for me for the variable of like butterfly migration to be manipulated. And then I just tried to put that in a separate category of science from the physical science, that you can have manipulation of independent and dependent variables. But yeah, this is all cleared up for me too.
Guys, overthinking things, huh?
You got to have your area of study first established, right? And it has to be in the physical world. And within that area of study, something has to happen that you don't know the cause of. Then you can go to the scientific method.
Yes, precisely.
No, I'm extremely satisfied with the explanation to something being a naturally occurring thing happening to somebody versus synthetic. That kind of like it clicked right away when you said, I'm like, oh, that's why it's valid. Okay. So that's good. I'm happy about that.
Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Quite the contrary. When you've got a very simplistic method that's empirical, the actual ascertain of cause is a very hard process to actually achieve, right? You'll probably fail. But that's why it gets hijacked, because it offers an empirical outcome. So the way the scientific method offers empiricism is by having a direct violation of the law of non-contradiction built into the hypothesis. So what do I mean? if your hypothesis is, in the most simplistic terms, A will cause B and A will not cause B, both statements cannot hold true simultaneously. A can't both cause and not cause B at the same time. Only one can be true. So when you vary A, one of the two outcomes will occur, and only one of the two outcomes will occur. Ergo, one of the two outcomes will be proven. This was something I was trying to drill into Jaron before he revealed himself as a shill. There's a reason why he didn't want to accept the scientific method. He was primed to say, oh no, it's actually a ball after all. So us pointing out the hijacking of an empirical method wasn't in his wheelhouse. But he was saying it doesn't prove things. It only proves things. Because A causing B simultaneously must mean that A not causing B is a false statement. If A causes B, then it can't not cause B, so you draw a line through the null. By contrast, if you vary A and nothing happens, then you've put a tick next to the null. A didn't cause B. But that automatically rules out the alternative, A causing B. If it didn't cause it, then it can't be the cause. So you've validated one or other of those two predictions. Prediction 1, A will cause B. Prediction 2, A will not cause B. Only one can be true. So when you test A by varying it and seeing if it causes B or not, one will be proven. One will get a tick next to it at the end. So one of those statements will be proven. It's empirical by nature.
In a way.
I never stood that one here and resisted
Hold on, Neil.
because it makes no sense. Then why even do it?
Well, hold on, before we do. In a way, it's kind of a red herring away from the topic. Because if you're talking about whether the Earth is or is not a flat plane, that's not a how or why question.
Correct. Concrete noun. We did cover that just before you got here, but yes. I'm glad you're reiterating it. I said it before you got here. But yeah, concrete nouns don't go through the method because something occurring, B, isn't a concrete noun. Flat plane. What's occurring? To say if I vary A, a flat plane will happen. A flat plane isn't something happening.
Yeah, but a lot of people can get that confused. I did myself. Like, I thought Earth, of course, it's a naturally observing phenomenon. Look at all the stuff going on. And even that guy, the Jamaican guy, Robert, he still swears that Earth is a naturally occurring phenomenon.
Did you want to add something, Arthur, because you're causing feedback?
I'm sorry.
So there we go. The only reason
I will say that the study that Earth, whether it Earth measurements are absolutely empirical, are they not?
Yeah, but it's not. It's just a category error if you call it science. It's maths. Yes, you can have empiricism in mathematics when you talk about measurements of things. Yes, that's empirical, but it's just not an empirical cause and effect understanding established through systematic experimentation. That's science. Measuring stuff is maths.
Right, but the measurements are the empirical measurements that they're using to plug in to their formulas, calculations, and corrections and maths.
Yes. Correct.
How is it falsifiable?
How are measurements falsifiable?
Yeah. How do you falsify 1 inch?
You don't.
That's a trick question. You
don't.
You don't? Okay, fine. I was going to try to figure out something,
Said
but
that.
yeah, you don't, John. You don't.
But what if the calculation don't line up with the measurements, John? You do that?
The calculations are invalid at that point.
Yeah, you can't have your calculation violate the base principle that you've measured in the first instance. As soon as it does, then you throw out the calculation, not the measurement. The calculation must be wrong, not the measurement.
You know, like if somebody was saying, that means pi equals 2. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, that was pathetic, wasn't it? Oh, wow, if this, that, and the other, because Earth's flat, then pi equals... No. That's nonsense.
I really think there should be a show on just measurements and what they are.
Today will come pretty close to that, I would imagine. You'll see.
Yeah, I think so. I listened to a little bit of it. I think you're right.
What would be great for my benefit would be a way to work in how measurements like elevation angles are invalid if you assume that 90-degree angles are divergent. If they're diverging zenith angles.
Straight into a contradiction in terms.
Right, but I've got people that are saying they're looking at the textbook. I was looking at the textbook today, and they say because the Earth is a sphere, then sea level is curved. Even though they defined what leveling is in the previous sentence, the Earth is level. I should probably read it. The Earth is level. Yeah, the terms level line and horizontal line are used frequently in leveling and need to be carefully defined. A level line or surface is defined as a line along which all points are the same height, period. Next sentence. Because the Earth is curved, level lines are also curved as shown in figure 2.1. And I get this one all the time from somebody on Facebook. I know. I say that, but this is a textbook, so you're not a surveyor. Blah blah blah. Textbook. This is from a textbook. So where they're doing the hoop-de-hoop or the where they're flipping it.
Yeah, do you want to know the problem? This came up when the guy on Thursday's show criticised me for having a poor education. And I was like, I was privately educated. I had a very expensive education. One of the things they taught us was logic. Right? So if you don't teach logic, someone's off mute in G+ or Discord. If you don't teach people logic, then they don't spot a logical contradiction, a contradiction in terms, a violation of the law of non-contradiction. Now, unless you've been taught logic, you won't spot that. So this is going to maybe come as a shock to some of my audience, but you can still have violations of the law of non-contradiction in textbooks. Like saying level, having no part higher or lower than another, is the same as curving, a deviation from level. No, that's a blatant contradiction in terms. But because Earth's a ball, we can have a contradiction in terms. No, we can't. But what we can have is the principle of level being utilised, and this is the crux of the globe Earth faith and reification. The fact that in order to believe in a globe, you must violate the law of non-contradiction. Why? Well, because you're measuring Earth flat, and then in the calculations, defying the very principle of the measurement you made. Like I say, if you don't know logic, you won't spot a logical inconsistency.
They do that a lot
if
in
I'm
schools, Nathan. Give me 1 second. They do it with that, and that would have been great if we could catch that as young people. Went right past it because we were taught from an early age that there's a sphere. So we whistle right past that. But they also teach you in Catholic school that God created everything, and then in the next page, the science book, they start teaching us about evolution. So there's a lot of contradictions in the schooling system.
Yeah, I don't dispute it.
yeah. Well, what's fascinating in this textbook is, and it's a credit to having spent enough time talking about this and trying to find out how they come up with inconsistencies, is they just very easily slip into why you really don't have to measure the curve. They give you an illustration that's like hugely exaggerated. You can definitely see the curve, and they can show you how they get diverging zenith angles and stuff.
Another
And they
contradiction in terms.
they define the horizontal line, the level line. We went through that. But when you're using an optical or digital level to determine height differences, measurements should be taken from curved level lines. And
That makes
a
no
horizontal line, I know, there's no sense. A horizontal line is one which is normal to the direction of gravity, the vertical, at a particular point. We know you can't have horizontal at a point, such as P in the figure 2-2. Horizontal lines, they show horizontal lines, but they're above the ground where their theodolite is. So the theodolite is defining the horizontal at its height above the curve, and they show that. But then they go.
And what's that called? Is that called curve level?
Bendizontal.
Well,
This is when an optical.
What we actually use is sea level and surface level. That's what we actually measure from.
It is, and they show Earth curvature equals mean sea level. That quote,
Well, again,
unquote, unquote,
contradiction in
Earth
terms.
curvature equals mean sea level, and they show a curve. Here's here's
So how do you measure the curve? It's back to the guy on Thursday. So, okay, so you say sea level curves. Okay, let's see how much curve there is in the sea level. How would you describe a curve? Oh, well, it's a deviation from the horizontal. So you need a horizontal plane of reference to describe curve. Is it in the measurements? No. Just the level.
That was perfect. It's game over then.
Yeah. And here's when they get you. It says when they state the obvious, when an optical or digital level is set up correctly, it defines a horizontal line for measurement of height differences. And this would seem to contradict the need to measure along curved level lines. However, for most survey work, the difference between a horizontal line and a level line, quote, or parentheses, called curvature, is small enough to be ignored. And it can be assumed that level and horizontal lines are the same. So this is discussed further in section 7.2.17.
So level is
and then
level.
They go on to talk about
level is defined as having no part higher or lower than another, unless we violate the principle of level and call it curved. But in terms of Earth measurement, we measure it level, and there's so little curved level, which is a contradiction in terms, that we can call level level. So we can ignore the contradiction in terms that we've inserted. So introduce a contradiction in terms that violates the base principle and axiomatic horizontal, and then say, but there's so negligible violation of the law of non-contradiction curve level that we can call level level. It's okay that level is level because there's no curve level to worry about. In other words, we measure Earth flat. We say that when we measure it flat, it's curved. But then if somebody points out that we're not measuring it curved, we say, well, there's so little curve of the level that we can call it level. So we measure Earth flat because Earth's flat. And when we measure it flat, it'll be flat. That's what they're actually saying. But with a little violation of the law of non-contradiction thrown in between.
In any other discipline, that would be stopped immediately.
Yes.
But because we're talking about Earth curves, it's accepted.
Well, not by us, but what are we actually measuring? That's the brass tacks. What do we actually measure? Level. And it must be, because we're going to be doing trig, horizontal distance, elevation, zenith. All of these things are 90 degrees to a plane of reference. All of these things are axiomatically tied to a flat plane. So you can't not have it not be flat. But when they throw in that it isn't flat, but is so not deviating from level in such a small amount that we can call it level, it's like we already had what a level was. So can we call it level with level being curved? No, that's just nonsense. Nope. Level is a defiance of curve. It's fundamentally not level, isn't it? But they're saying level is curved, but it's so little curve, which would be described from the level to begin with, that we can call level level. It's okay to call level level because it's got so little curve in it. But also, level's curved. What a load of nonsense waffle doublespeak.
So when pertaining to Earth, these things are good. Okay. Oh, boy.
But this is the magic trick.
It's ridiculous.
Yes.
Sorry, Dave. I was just saying, yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, if he was explaining how to measure curve using diagrams and explanations, they'd be mentioning curve all the time and how to work out the distance across that curve. But none of that's ever mentioned. It's always horizontal and level, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what it is.
The thing is, level is our perspective view of horizontal. That will never change. We experience horizontal as level.
Correct.
Wasn't
Indeed.
it that Mez last week? He was saying level and horizontal are totally different. That's what came out of his mouth.
Yeah. John, repeat what you just said, John, because that's what I've been trying to say, but I haven't been able to say it like you just said it. We experience what?
We experience horizontal as level because level is our perspective view of horizontal.
Yeah. So any observations being made by anybody are being made on a flat Earth.
Yeah.
Nobody has ever made an observation from a sphere.
No, and when you describe it mathematically, that would be to say the perspective view, as conspiracy cats, now culture cats, found out. You'll have to, quote, give you a flat Earth for that. Because that's how it's axiomatically tied to the surface when we describe the view horizontally. That's a perspective view. I'll give you a flat Earth for that, end quote, culture cats. He came along and left a comment about my book, and I'll just quote culture cats, formerly conspiracy cats again. Quote, "There isn't enough popcorn in the world," end quote. I said, that's very reassuring, cats. Thank you so much for letting me know how thoroughly engaging my book will be. Really reassuring.
Nice. You know who else put something in, but I don't trust him. Ranty was saying something in the chat yesterday. He was saying that he put something in his adverts about you.
Yeah, maybe a little
Supporting
advert. Yeah, shout out to Ranty. Swing on.
Also, refracted curvature. Do you know what Bev would say in return to you?
What's that?
Tell us.
Bev would say, that's just your point of view.
Point? No, when you're describing perspective, you're describing angles, not points.
Try telling him that.
Yeah, but we do use that as a sentence all the time. On my point of view, this is what it means.
That's a figure of speech.
Well, the point of view is the point in your eye, the origin point, right?
Vertex.
But the lines extending out from it are, level with respect to the horizontal plane of reference when they're horizontal.
How are you?
Very well.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello. Good to have you all. So, off the back of a discussion last week with DJ One Deck, shout out to him. I've just put several of his shortened and lengthier versions of his song that he did in last week's Friday show called If Earth Was a Giant Roast Chicken. So check that out. As I say, I've released a shorts version, a shortened version, and a full-length version. So you can check those out. Big shout out to him for making the song that I could make those with. So DJ One Deck suggested that in future shows, now being that future, we shouldn't necessarily cover our anti-flat earth opponents when it comes to some of their positions that they have to lie about. So today I came across a SciManDan thumbnail that had quotes with my face, and the quote was words that hadn't crossed my lips. Or to put it another way, Dan seems to have no option but to just lie about things I haven't said, rather than actually address the things I do say. So in the case of SciManDan's most recent response, I can already tell the angle that he'll be taking in that regard with the lie in quotes that I didn't say on his thumbnail. And it'll be about elevation angle measurements made by SciManDan 1,000 times, with his participating audience measuring Earth flat. Quote, SciManDan, we don't only measure Earth flat, end quote, SciManDan, after measuring Earth flat 1,000 times. Now that's a verbatim quote that's actually crossed Dan's lips. That's to say I'm not just making those words up, like Dan seems to feel the need to do in his thumbnails. Now, it seems you've got to lie to be a globe believer, because in this particular instance, I'm agreeing with Dan. I'm leaning into the measurements he made off a flat Earth. They're elevation angle measurements that he and his audience measured 1,000 times. But rather than getting irritated and drawing attention to SciManDan, in this instance, we're going to be covering something slightly different, or covering that aspect of our opponent's suggested globe Earth proving flat Earth measurements from a different perspective. So today, in case you haven't figured it out from the title, we're going to be covering a videographer who's got a lot more subscribers than Dan, called eHow Education. And the title of the video is called How to Find the Angle of Elevation of the Sun Using the Shadows of Objects. And then it's got a colon, physics and math. So that's what we'll be covering today. But we don't want to do that too quickly. We've got to have a little bit of a build-up. So we'll have a discussion about how things have gone over the weekend before we do get into eHow Education and the PhD explaining precisely how Dan measured Earth flat 1,000+ times with the help of his audience. So we'll get to that shortly. Any comments before we do, though? Hopefully we'll have a decent conversation about anything that's happened or occurrences over the weekend. We don't have to launch straight into SciManDan, but I just want to get it in the intro, so to speak, so that people know what's coming up on today's Flat Earth debate.
Well, speaking of angles, on yesterday, one of my favorite football players got his ankle flipped in an angle that it's not supposed to be in and is out for the season. Devastating. It was horrible to see on TV. The kid was so full of life, scatterboo, and that's it. Season over, maybe career over.
Heartbreaking. I'm sorry to hear that. I laughed because you said an angle that wasn't supposed to be how it was supposed to. That made me laugh. And not that, the pain of some football players going to, be laughing.
No, it's not supposed to go that way.
I'm sure.
When you see it live, it's like, oh my goodness, that's not supposed to look like that.
Have we all had a good weekend?
Just regarding the elevation.
Yeah,
Sorry,
go
Nathan.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, once somebody knows what an elevation angle is, its definition and what's included in the elevation angle, as in the horizontal plane the observer's standing on, horizontal baseline, to get the elevation angle, you wouldn't want to be using that to then go ahead and describe how it would be an impossibility to measure a curved baseline, because it's not included in any of that aspect of what it is, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Sure. Well, we'll read out a few definitions as we go along. So I'll start with the most popular one, or my favourite, which is sustainable by design. The altitude angle, open brackets, sometimes referred to as the solar elevation angle, close brackets, describes how high the sun appears in the sky. The angle is measured between an imaginary line between the observer and the sun and the horizontal plane the observer is standing on. Sustainable by design, altitude angle.
So there you go. So the horizontal part of obtaining that elevation angle does require a horizontal plane that the observer is standing on.
Yes.
Now, if you're on a globe, Earth, yeah, because that's what you've been taught and told, and then you go out and measure these angles, which could be distances, an angle, you're going to be standing on a horizontal plane, correct? That's what it's just told us. You're going to be using that horizontal plane for the elevation angle.
Yeah.
It's not curved.
Exactly. It's measured from the horizontal. I mean, I'll give you another definition of it. This one's from PVE or PV Education. The elevation angle, used interchangeably with altitude angle, is the angular height of the sun in the sky measured from the horizontal.
So again, horizontal. Now, horizontal isn't curved. I mean, I have heard. I'm not asking that because I know it's not. But this is some of the responses you get from people who, when you're explaining this measurement of Earth across Earth, distances along the points of that horizontal baseline, sometimes in the region of 5,400 miles, they'll tell you, well, horizontal's curved. It can't be curved because you've just acquired an elevation angle, which requires a horizontal baseline. So at no point in that measurement have you used or utilized a curve.
Yeah, the reference direction is 0 degrees. Do you want another one? Measurement of elevation angle. This is by Radar Tutorial. Elevation angle is the angle between the horizontal plane and the line of sight measured in the vertical plane. The reference direction, i.e. an elevation angle of 0 degrees, is a horizontal line in the direction of the horizon. Radar Tutorial, elevation angle measurement.
That's a great one, because it's not only going over that and confirming the horizontal, it's also utilizing the horizon, which we know is an apparent place, not a place. It's defined as an apparent location, but it does use the surface of the Earth for that apparentness, where the sky and the surface of the Earth appear to meet. So it is referencing the surface of Earth, and now we're using it to also, in line with the horizontal plane that we're standing on, to obtain the elevation angle. So it all ties in really, really well. Yes. I like that one.
So this one is the same for all of the definitions, but what we have on screen now, I think I'll pause this so it stays on screen for the duration of the show. What we have on screen now is what was measured by SciManDans and his audience. What we have on screen is an elevation angle measurement of the sun. Now, this is why Dan has to lie about me and put words that have not crossed my lips about things not being debunked on his thumbnail. Gotta lie to Glurf. Because what I actually say is this is what SciManDans and 1,000 plus participants of his measured. It is an elevation angle measurement from surface level of the sun. And in order to measure surface level as part of the angle, Earth can only be measured flat. That's what I actually say. Maybe put this in quotes. SciManDans measured Earth flat with an elevation angle from surface level. End quote. That's what I actually say. Why? Because it's a statement of fact based on what was measured by 1,000 of Dan's participating audience members. This is what they measured. Earth as a flat plane because it formed part of the angle measurement. Now, I'm in no doubt, because I'm not going to even watch Dan's video. I saw his thumbnail and went, oh, right, Dan's got a lie about me, has he? What a shame. Now, I don't have to lie about Dan when I say you and your reference frames are ruined, end quote, SciManDans. Again, that's a verbatim quote out of Dan's spastic lips when he stutters his way around destroying his own reference frames. Or, quote, we don't only measure Earth flat, end quote, stuttery SciManDans, after measuring Earth flat 1,000 plus times, utilising this. That's surface level to form part of the angle measurement. These are statements of axiomatic fact used by Dan and his audience to measure Earth flat. It can't be anything else. Now, these are the words I actually say. Putting words I haven't said in quotes and then putting my face on a thumbnail just makes me want to call Dan an egregious scumbag, disingenuous, lying glurf, because that's precisely what he is when he puts quotes around words I haven't said. But I'll repeat what I do say. Dan measured Earth flat. It's an elevation angle prerequisite that you will and do use and utilise surface level, that's flat, as part of the angle measurement to the sun, with sticks and shadows. Dan measured Earth flat 1,000 times and then said, we don't only measure Earth flat, because he's measured Earth flat. Now, there's no escaping this fact, and this fact will become more simplistic and more predominant as time progresses, as I explain it to all audiences who'll listen that aren't separated from us through censorship. But if you're listening, Earth is measured flat by everyone and without exception. Even the people that think they're measuring to prove a ball will and can only measure Earth as a horizontal, planar surface. For example, surface level, sea level, flight level, eye level. All of these axiomatic principles are parallel with one another, all parallel with the plane of the horizon. That's how Earth is measured. And when SciManDans goes out to measure Earth with an angle, this is the angle he measures from surface level. It can't be bent, or it wouldn't be an angle. You don't have part of the elevation angle from surface level bending, because then it's not an angle anymore. And you can't apply trig, you can't apply an angle, you can't put a little degree symbol next to a number if one of the lines is bent. But what do you measure? Lying glurf scumbags that need to misquote me on your thumbnails. Well, you measure Earth flat. Now, what are you going to do to get around this? Well, you'll suggest that level's not level. Level isn't having no part higher or lower than another. Level is actually curved. A deviation from level that could only be described if you got a level to describe the curve from. But level isn't level, it's curved according to people who have their flat Earth prerequisite measurements pointed out to them. Well, level isn't really level. Oh, really? Well, show me in this 1,000 plus utilized elevation angle measurement where the curve is, because when you do, you'll find yourself in what I call the hard place, where you have to toss to the curb your use of an angle. That would be an elevation angle measurement from surface level, as I've just defined 3 times and have diagrammatically represented on screen here. This is what Dan's audience actually measured. They all measured Earth flat. That's why Dan needs to lie about things I haven't said about debunking things. No. I'm agreeing with you, Dan. Well done. You measured elevation angles 1,000+ times with the help of your audience. What's an elevation angle? Well, let's have a few more definitions, shall we, of what an elevation angle measurement is? Maybe this one. This one's from Formulas, Definitions and Examples. Angle of elevation. The angle of elevation is the angle between the horizontal line and the line of sight above the horizontal line. It is formed when an observer looks upwards. And then it gives an example. Suppose you're standing at the terrace of a building looking upwards at the sky or at the sun or moon. The angle thus formed between your height from ground level and the line of sight formed is called the angle of elevation. Ergo, in order to measure this and call it an angle, you will require level ground to measure it from, otherwise known as surface level, ground level, sea level, parallel with flight level and eye level. These are axiomatic principles required to call your measurement, made by Dan and his audience 1,000+ times, an elevation angle. What's elevation? A measurement from surface, level, for it to be an angle. So we're clear. Dan measured Earth flat 1,000 times. Quote, we don't only measure Earth flat, end quote, SciManDan. Yeah, you do. You only measured Earth flat 1,000 times. That's precisely what you did. Want a couple more? This one's from... let's have a look. Sustainable Broad Design, we've already had that one.
I'd say all hail King Dan then.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with his measurement because it can't be anything other than a flat planar surface, or you cannot call it an angle. One's from GCSE 2021 edition, Angles of Elevation and Depression. An angle of elevation is the angle from the lower object to the higher one, while an angle of depression is the angle from the higher object to the lower one. Both angles are measured with respect to the horizontal plane of the reference object. Like this on screen. There's a horizontal plane and it forms part of the angle measured by Dan and 1,000 participants, his audience. So in conclusion, Dan and his audience measured Earth flat. Like all Earth measurements, there are no exceptions. We only measure Earth flat. And if you decide to defy the very principle of this angle measurement, then it's no longer an angle and you no longer have any measurements. That's why Dan has to lie about things I haven't said in quotes. Don't you, Dan? You gotta lie to believe you're on a ball when you're measuring Earth flat 1,000 times. What's that? We don't only measure Earth flat, end quote, SciManDan. That's a verbatim quote, Dan, unlike the lies that you put on your thumbnail. You do, though, only measure Earth flat. You only measured these elevation angles 1,000 times off a flat planar surface, Dan. That's how they're measured. It's an elevation angle, as defined about half a dozen times thus far by me. What about this one? The solar altitude, AS, measures the angle between the central ray from the sun and a horizontal plane contacting the observer. Or in Dan's case, 1,000 observers, all with horizontal planes contacting them to be a measurement of an angle. Now you can toss those measurements that Dan and his 1,000 participants made to one side because you believe the ground's curving. But axiomatically, the solar altitude measures the angle between the central ray from the sun and a horizontal plane contacting the observer. So you all, 1,000 participants, had a horizontal plane contacting you when you measured surface level for your angle. These are facts, flat earth measurement facts, because, in case you hadn't picked up on it, it's not exactly subtle, Earth is and can only be measured flat. Exactly as demonstrated by Dan, which is why Dan's making repeated videos about me. He's a really big fan of Nathan Oakley, aren't you, Dan?
I mean, anybody can look at that diagram. A child, of some age can look at that diagram, and you could ask him, is there any curvature in that measurement? And there's most definitely isn't any curvature being used for that elevation angle. There's no curvature being used whatsoever. And as for, the people like SciManDans, like you say, Nathan said this and Nathan said that. This isn't Nathan's dictionary on elevation angle measurements. This is just what an elevation angle is. Yeah. I mean, SciManDans did a great job because he's used the surface of Earth as well. I mean, we've got, we do have measuring equipment, or there is measuring equipment out there like theodolites, sextants. They're designed to measure elevation angles, but you can use the surface of the Earth, which is what Dan did. So he was utilizing the surface of Earth for the horizontal baseline of the elevation angle, which is fantastic.
The previous definition was from desadia.com. This one's from Principles of Naval Ordnance and Gunnery. Quote, target elevation angle between the horizontal plane and the line of sight measured in the vertical plane through the line of sight. Positive angles are measured upwards from the horizontal plane. This is what was measured by SciManDans and his audience 1,000 times. It's this on screen. An elevation angle measurement to the sun. This is why Dan has to lie and put things in quotes that I haven't said about debunkings. No. I've not mentioned anything about debunking anything. What I have said is SciManDans measured Earth flat 1,000+ times. Then I quote his justification, which is, we don't only measure Earth flat, end quote SciManDans. Again, a verbatim quote, something that Dan's actually said, as opposed to the glurf, scumbag, disingenuous lies putting quotes on Dan's thumbnail. Words I've not said. I'm agreeing with your measurements, Dan. Why would you need to lie when I'm agreeing with you? Dan measured thousands of elevation angles with the help of his audience. This is an elevation angle. I've just defined it 6 ways from Sunday. Shall we hear a PhD describe it? Who would like that, children?
Yeah, I think I'd like to hear some of another profession explain exactly what you're saying.
Hi, my name's Derek Hullinger. I have a PhD in physics, and I'm...
Does SciManDans have a PhD in physics?
I don't think so.
Really? So this guy outranks Dan, who is, what's the word? A wanker. Wanker man Dan says, Nathan says, and puts bullshit words I haven't said in quotes. That makes him a disingenuous, lying wanker. This man is a PhD on a very large channel. Let's see what he's got to say.
I'm going to explain how to find the angle of elevation of the
What, like Dan measured 1,000 times? Oh, wonderful.
sun using a shadow.
Like Dan did with his audience? Like with a stick and a shadow? Excellent.
So, let's say the sun is shining on some beautiful day.
You're listening, SciManDans audience. Let's pretend you measured the sun. Oh, you all did, 1,000 of you. Like this guy's describing, on a beautiful day with the sun visible. Wonderful. You're paying attention. Jolly good.
And let's say here's the ground right here.
What would that be? Oh dear. Does that look curved? PhD man just drew a straight line. Now we know it's straight. It's gonna form part of an angle. So it can only be a flat surface level, like was measured 1,000 times by Dan and his 1,000 participants. A flat surface level for an angle, says this PhD scientist. So, Dan, you're going to tell me that you didn't measure Earth flat 1,000 times? Oh, no, you've already decided what you'll do. You'll put words I haven't said in a quote that I haven't said, because you're a liar. Meanwhile, PhD here says Earth is going to be measured flat.
And maybe
Just give it, Nathan.
Yeah.
Just give that a J. Did he say ground? I just want to hear that again, whether he said ground level or surface level or Earth. Okay.
on some beautiful day. And let's say here's the ground right here. And maybe you've got a fence post right here. And let's say that you take out a ruler and you find out that that fence post is 3 feet tall.
Is this all sounding familiar, Dan's audience, when you measured your sticks and shadows? For angles of elevation from surface level, you all measured Earth flat, as being described by this PhD. I mean, don't take my word for it. Take PhD physicist here and his word for it when he describes a measurement. I mean, this isn't science, it's maths. It's measuring Earth, in this case, as a horizontal plane of reference for an angle.
And you take out another ruler. Well, before we talk about the shadow, actually, where would the shadow fall?
On a flat Earth, if you're going to measure an angle with the surface. That's where.
Well, it's pretty easy to figure that out.
Sorry, Dave. That shadow will. Let me correct me if I'm wrong. That shadow will be the horizontal baseline for the elevation angle. I take it. There's the measurement. Obviously, he's using the ground. It's horizontal, but he's going to measure the shadow to acquire the angle. I take it, which will be horizontal.
Yeah, I mean, a bit like principles of naval ordnance and gunnery say. Target elevation angle between the horizontal plane and the line of sight measured in the vertical plane. So what have we got along the ground? We've got a horizontal plane, like was measured 1,000 times by Dan and his audience. So when I say Earth is, was, and can only be measured flat, PhD here absolutely affirms that which was measured 1,000 times by my opponent, Dan. The one lying about things I haven't said about debunkings? No. You measured Earth flat, Dan. Well done, Dan and his 1,000 participating audience members who unequivocally measured Earth flat for their angles.
Well, it kind of goes into what Refracted was saying earlier. Like, what else is he going to draw? His only experience is flat. And that's the only way it'll work.
It's the only way you can measure an angle. I mean, you can say, oh, no, actually, the ground's curving. Well, then it isn't an angle. of elevation with respect to a horizontal plane the observer is standing on, end quote Tasadia.com, or the horizontal plane contacting the observer, GCSE Maths, or naval ordnance and gunnery, the elevation angle between the horizontal plane and line of sight measured in the vertical plane. These are principles, in fact, that are being measured by my opponent. The one that says Earth's curving. Well, I've got a question for Dan. Why on unholy hell are you measuring Earth flat if you believe you're on a ball? Why aren't you measuring it ball-shaped? I'll tell you why. Because Earth is flat. Exactly as it's measured by Dan and 1,000 participating audience members of his, who all measured a horizontal plane and the line of sight measured in the vertical plane. That's what they all measured. Earth flat with their sticks and shadows. That's what they did. That's why Dan now has to lie about things I haven't said.
I was just going to say, Nathan, sorry, before you go on. Yeah, I'd love Dan to look at this video now, the PhD explaining how to measure an elevation angle, what's required and how you do it, and sort of go over it and say, well, this isn't what you do, because you'll need a curved baseline. I mean, I'd like to just to go over it in detail and prove this PhD wrong. He can't, obviously, because this is the requirements of the elevation angle. This is what Dan used to measure his elevation angles and his 1,000 friends. I'd just like to hear him go over it.
Well, here's the problem.
And try to explain.
Here's the problem. You see, Dan has said, quote, "We don't only measure Earth flat," end quote. It's verbatim. And I say, we only measure Earth flat. And then I give an example where Dan's own audience has measured Earth flat 1,000 times. They only measured Earth flat. So, given that Dan says we don't only measure Earth flat, perhaps he could show with this PhD giving an example of his own measurements where this is in any way, shape, or form not flat. Maybe Dan can explain that rather than misquoting me and lying about things I haven't said. Could he show us where this measurement isn't flat? Do you think you could do that, Dan, for me? Can you show me where this measurement by this PhD describing what you and 1,000 of your audience members measured isn't flat? Because I would suggest that Earth is and can only be measured flat. And the example I'd give would be you and your 1,000 audience members who all only measured Earth flat 1,000 times. So maybe you can show me where we don't measure it flat, because that's precisely what you did. You only measured Earth flat.
You just draw a line from the sun across the top of the fence post all the way to the ground like that. So in this case, that's how long the shadow would be. So let's say that that shadow was maybe 2 feet long at a certain...
2 feet long? Like, it's almost as though this gentleman is suggesting that 2 feet along the ground is a horizontal linear measurement of the surface. Yeah, that's surprisingly accurate, because feet, meters, kilometers, miles, they're all horizontal, linear, flat Earth only measurements when describing the ground, because we only measure Earth flat when describing horizontal, linear, flat Earth distances, as was done by SciManDans and his participating audience members. Feet in this application, that's Earth measurement, are ipso facto a flat Earth prerequisite. It's a horizontal, linear Earth measurement. Earth, ladies and gentlemen, can only be measured flat. What's that you say? We've got hills and valleys? Yeah, if you describe a distance and then measure the rise over run, the run will be given in a horizontal linear distance measurement. In this case, feet. 2 of them. Flat. Like any scaled up version all the way up to 2,500 miles used for trig by Red Rhetoric. These are prerequisite horizontal linear flat earth miles, and in this case feet. That is how earth is measured. Again, you can lie and say, no, the ground's really curving, in which case it won't give you an angle and you can't apply feet to it. Like this PhD, not a lying shitbag called SciManDans, who stutters about our reference frames are ruined when trying to demonstrate how Earth's got 2 of them. What a clown. Or says we don't only measure Earth flat after measuring it flat 1,000 times, only to lie about things I haven't said. No. This is a respected PhD describing exactly how Earth is measured flat by SciManDans specifically for sticks and shadows.
I mean, just looking at that, Nathan, just at a quick glance of what's on screen there, you've got obviously a vertical stick at 3 foot, which will require a horizontal baseline for the vertical. You've got a 2 foot distance along the horizontal baseline. You've got the line of sight up to the... I mean, it's almost looking like a right angle triangle to me. I can't see the curvature in there yet.
That, and he hasn't said that, though, so we can't be absolutely certain that is the case.
Day. The angle of elevation of the sun, in this case, is just this angle right here. Let's call that theta.
So theta, if Earth isn't flat, isn't an angle. So, I mean, Dan and his 1,000 participating audience members can say, no, really, the ground's curving. Well, then it's not an angle. Now, you'd be shocked to hear it, but we've already got this position defined. It's called the hard place, where your measurements of Earth and its surface level for an angle aren't angles because the ground's curving. It's called the hard place, where you toss to the curb your own bleeding measurements because you don't like how flat Earth must be to measure them. What's that? We don't only measure Earth flat, end quote, SciManDans. Yeah, you do. You only measure Earth flat if you want to call it an angle. And you all did. Every single one of SciManDans' participating audience members all measured an angle from surface level. They all measured elevation angles. And PhD here knows for sure and without a doubt he's measuring Earth flat because he's describing it as an angle. So it can only be flat Earth measurements or they wouldn't be angles. Let's get that absolutely plain and clear. Earth can only be measured flat because that's what Earth is. Flat. Exactly as measured by SciManDans and his 1,000 participating members of his audience.
Well, we could also draw that angle right here if we wanted to. It's the same.
Well, not if it's not a flat ground, you can't.
Same angle. And you notice that this is a right triangle here.
Oh, well, that's definitely the last nail in the coffin, isn't it? A right angle triangle proving for sure and without a doubt that Earth is measured flat for this to be a right angle triangle. Bit like Red Rhetoric used in his trig with 2,500 miles of flat Earth horizontal linear distance measurements. That's what Earth gets measured as, at all scales with any distance across the Earth's surface. If you're going to apply trig or angles to it, exactly as we do. Now at this point, I'm going to point out that in order to believe you're on a ball, you derive radial values using this method. That's to say, in order to have a ball to believe in, you only measure Earth flat in order to extrapolate your ball belief from it. Earth is measured flat for you to believe you're on a ball.
And we can actually figure out what that angle is based on how tall this fence post is and how long its shadow is.
Only if we've got a flat surface level and perpendicularity with respect to surface level. And what do you know? We've got a right-angled triangle, proving for sure and without a doubt, Earth is measured flat. And just to add insult to injury for any of the clowns that participated with Dan who believed they were somehow validating sphericity, Earth can only be measured flat. To call this a right-angled triangle or an angle. That's how Earth is always measured without exception. Otherwise, why on earth would my bull-believing counterpart SciManDan, who has all of the views directed towards him, be measuring it in this fashion? He'd measure it curved, if it was curved. Instead, like all Earth measurements, Dan and his audience only measure Earth flat.
If you remember from trigonometry, the tangent of an angle is equal to...
Sorry, did he say tangent of an angle? He didn't say tangent of a curve angle, right? I didn't mishear him.
The length of the side opposite the angle, so in this case that's 3, divided by the length of the side next to the angle. So in this
length of the side on the flat surface of Earth with right-angled triangles for trig? I see. So what he's essentially saying is we can only apply this to a flat Earth. That's correct. Earth's measured flat in all examples. Why else would my opponent measure Earth flat like this? Because that's how it's measured. Flat. In all instances and without exception. Now, people have told me over the last couple of months that this is just too simple. It can't be this simple, can it? Yeah, it can. Earth is measured flat by everyone, always and without exception. Now, over time, people will start realising that like anything in life that's true, it is simple. Why would it be complicated? We measure Earth flat because Earth is flat. Like we measure it.
In this case, that's 2. So the tangent of this angle is 3/2, or 1.5. So to figure out what that angle is,
we'll need a flat Earth surface level to be measured and a right-angled triangle plonked on top of it, or it won't be a measurement at all. That would be the hard place. Notice how he's not talking about sphericity. Notice how he's not talking about ball shapes. Notice how he's only talking about flat Earth surface level and trig. And angles. Off the surface level. As defined as an elevation angle. You know who measured these? SciManDans and his audience 1,000 times. I mean, it beggars belief when you think about it, while I'm being simultaneously told by my own side, that's flat earthers, that this can't be true. Well, then why is Dan using these measurements off a flat Earth then? That's what you've got to ask yourself. I'll answer it. It's because Earth is and can only be measured flat. That's why.
you use something called an arc tangent or an inverse tangent. So the way we would write that on paper is just that the angle equals the arc tangent of 1.5.
Only on a flat Earth.
And most calculators, especially scientific calculators, have a little ATAN button. That's an arc tangent button. Or sometimes the button will say tan -1. It's the same thing. So all you do is you type in 1.5 and then you hit that button and it tells you what that angle is. So if we went ahead and did that in this case with the 3 and the 2,
then we'd be affirming that Earth has been measured flat for the surface level to give you the 3. And that's exactly how, let's just think of an example. Who did this recently? Oh yeah, SciManDans did it 1,000 times. with a participating audience that all measured Earth flat. And not only did all of them measure Earth flat, they only measured Earth flat. I mean, unless you want to disbelieve PhD here, I mean, you can just throw out PhD scientists describing how Earth gets measured flat for angles, the same as SciManDans measured with 1,000 participating audience members. Now, thanks I'll give again to OneDeck for suggesting this is how we do things moving forward. We won't go to SciManDans' video where he puts egregious lies in quotes that I haven't said. Why would we want to go to some numbskull idiot who can't even speak properly when talking about reference frames he needs 2 of being ruined on Earth? You and your reference frames have been ruined, end quote. Stuttery SciManDans the clown. We've got PhDs who describe Dan's 1,000 participating audience members and their flat Earth requirement for an angle measurement of the sun with respect to the horizontal plane the observers were standing on. All 1,000 of them. All measuring Earth flat because we only measure Earth flat. But rather than directing people back to SciManDans, helping him where he's basically parasitical to all of the views that get directed to any flat Earth inquiry made on YouTube ever, I'm going to send my audience to this guy. So you can, tell him he's wrong? Tell PhD guy that, no, the curve ground. I've just noticed I got the 2 and the 3 wrong way around. It was 2 on the ground and 3 up in the vertical. Nevertheless, you can see from my chat, scrolling by, that a link to eHow Education and the video how to find angles of elevation, like the ones SciManDans and 1,000 participating audience members measured. That's a link to his video scrolling by in the live stream chat. So please let eHow Education know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me when utilising your video to show how you, me, and everybody who ever measures Earth with an elevation angle can and will only measure Earth flat. And any described defiance of this measurement would mean that you wouldn't be measuring an angle from surface level, like Earth is always measured. What's that? We don't only measure Earth flat. Yeah, we do, Dan. We only measure Earth flat. You and your 1,000 audience members measured Earth flat. They only measured Earth flat.
There's no way out of it, is there, really? I mean, look at, sorry, Nathan. There's no way out of this. I mean, we're not trying to, we're just telling the truth. The PhD is showing you the truth. That's an elevation angle on screen. If somebody says, well, the horizontal baseline is actually curved, well, it doesn't look curved, does it? It looks horizontal because it has to be horizontal to get the angle that is measured. It's very, very simple.
Yes, so simple that people want to criticise this as being too simple. But as I said earlier, the truth is simple and should be simple. If it's truthful, it shouldn't be complicated. You know what are complicated? Lies. Lies are complicated. Lies have things that defy the principle of the measurement built within them. For instance, level curves. No, that's a contradiction in terms. Level is having no part higher or lower than another, and if it's curving, then the only way to describe how curved it is to describe its deviation from level. So axiomatically, you have to bullshit your audience and lie to them with things that sound like violations of the law of non-contradiction because they are violations of the law of non-contradiction, like level being curved. Meanwhile, level being level is what's actually measured. And it's not an argument, it's just a description of how Earth gets measured. In this instance, by 1,000 plus members of SciManDans' audience. What's that? You need to put in quotes things I haven't said, Dan. Yeah, you've got to lie to believe you're on a ball. After only measuring Earth flat 1,000+ times.
Well, Nathan, good lies, they're wrapped up in truth. There's some truth in there, and they convolute it so much that you don't even see the lie.
Yeah, you have to be baffled with bullshit when you're being deceived. Make it so complicated that you can't see the wood for the trees. You can't see the truth wrapped up in the lie. The truth, on the other hand, is very simple, very easy to understand, very easy to comprehend. The truth in this instance is exactly as is being measured. The ground is flat, exactly as being measured. Now, that's not something that I need to argue about. That's just what's being measured here. A flat surface level, as defined 6 ways from Sunday before we got into this video. That's what the truth will always be. Simple, easy to understand, easy to digest. A lie, on the other hand, would apologise for the simplistic, awful truth that your belief is in contradiction with. That's to say, we don't only measure Earth flat. Well, you would never measure Earth flat, ever, if it was curving. You'd only measure it curving. But we only measure Earth flat in all circumstances. So for you flatties out there who say this is just too simple, I don't see how that's an objection. What, sniffing your own farts and arguing about complex stuff where you unpack the lies and deceit of your opponent after whistling past things like this? Flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle. Yeah, you'll have to whistle past the simplistic truth in order to sniff your own farts and have the complicated arguments that you're all so proud of on Flat Earth. Now me, I'm just going to point out the simple reality that we actually measure. It's flat. Earth's flat. We checked.
Nathan, I'd like to really... I'd love to listen to just a normal... we're talking about people in this arena who, because they, in a psychological dilemma that they want to be on this globe Earth thing, that they have to then change definitions of things like horizontal and angles. I would love to hear a legitimate person who's never really been into this argument, who just believes they live on a ball because that's what they've been told, and then we just tell them this is how this video is a demonstration of how, say, they claim the circumference of Earth was measured many, many years ago. And after going through it, I'd love to just hear their natural response, because the response should be, well, Earth can't be curved then.
Well, that's how it's defined, as in Tasadia.com. Altitude angle is the vertical angle between the projection of the sun's rays on the horizontal plane of Earth's surface.
I love that one. Yeah, it shouldn't be that Earth is not curved. Their immediate response should be, wow, Earth is measured flat.
Yeah, and we don't need to, as I've said, we don't need to argue about this. Yeah? It's not an argument. When we defy axioms, then we're violating the principles of the measurement of Earth as measured. Now, when we just describe how Earth's measured, it just ipso facto is measured flat. Now, like I say, for 10 years, we, collectively, have been whistling past the requirement to measure Earth flat, and then arguing about complex subjects that ignore how flat Earth is measured by everyone. Now, we're not going to whistle past any of these flat Earth angles anymore. Why would we? You measure Earth flat. We measure Earth flat. Earth is measured flat. So we don't have to ignore the axiomatic principle. We can highlight it and stop there. So Earth's being measured flat in this particular example then? Yeah, it is, yeah. Okay, well, that's the end of the discussion then. Not, well, if we take this flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle measurement and then violate the base principle of the measurement, we can suggest we're measuring sphericity. No, you're not. You're measuring Earth flat, then calculating sphericity based on a violation of the measurement of Earth as a surface level, the horizontal plane of Earth's surface used in this measurement. So we're not going to do that. It's not something I'm going to argue about anymore. It's a fact of Earth measurement, whether you like it or not, whether you want to believe you're on a ball or not. Earth will and can only be measured flat. So who cares what you believe after we've measured Earth? Flat for circles of equal elevation to describe concepts like Polaris angle measurements for latitude, like areas of equal elevation, that's circles of equal altitude. That's to say a circle, two-dimensional, with all the same heights across it for vast areas of measured Earth. Like miles, linear and horizontal, like on the maps and scales. Like sea level and surface level, parallel to the plane of the horizon. Like flight level and eye level, parallel with surface level. These are the axioms that are used when measuring Earth. And Earth is measured flat.
I'm looking for the measurements of the Earth. Can you show me?
Yeah, it's on screen now. I've just covered it for the last hour.
This is a time waster. We know this voice.
I've just covered it for the last hour. 1,000 measurements.
Sorry to interrupt.
1,000 measurements from SciManDans of elevation angle measurements. It's been defined 6 ways from Sunday. It's on screen now for the live audience. Are you retarded? Were you dropped on your head? We've covered it for a straight hour. You complete idiot. My question, I'll repeat. My question, I'll repeat. Are you retarded? Were you dropped on your head? We have covered it explicitly for the last hour. Where are the measurements? On screen now. Are you an idiot?
I can't see the screen on Discord.
Well, then go away, you complete clown shoes. Go and look at the live stream with your train wreck of a mic with distortion all over it. You complete bonehead. You don't even know how to use a microphone. Shut your stupid globe-believing idiot mouth. We've covered it and defined it 6 ways from Sunday. You complete bonehead. You didn't answer my question. Were you dropped on your head? All we're getting is static from this complete retard who doesn't know how to plug a mic in correctly. Retard. Number 1, go and plug your mic in correctly. Number 2, we've covered elevation angle measurements of Earth's surface for the last straight hour. Number 3, you still haven't answered me. Were you a globe-believing idiot dropped on your head to be this dense?
First of all, I'm not a globe believer. And the second thing is, when you are talking about the elevation angles, it's not the measurement of the surface.
Really? Let's just define it from naval ordnance and gunnery. Target elevation angle between the horizontal plane and the line of sight measured through the vertical plane. What about Tassadia? Altitude angle is the vertical angle between the projection of the sun's rays on the horizontal plane of Earth's surface.
Okay,
okay, you fucking retards! You piss me off greatly. Now fuck off, get out of my show, you disingenuous globe-believing spastic. How fucking dare you?
What did he say?
The thing is, Nathan, just before he goes, Nathan, this is a great, well, this is an example to the, just for the audience benefit. This is an example of an anti-flat. We've mentioned these in this show. This is where they go to now to tell you that the surface of your Earth isn't being used, when the PhD guys just told you that's what's being used. SciManDans used it. It's defined in the elevation angle definition. We've been through it with a professional person on it with a great channel. And now we've got, this is an example of an anti-flat earther.
I want him banned.
Saying that none of that is true. Everything that is on screen now is a lie. The horizontal baseline is not being used. Curvature is being used, but there's no curvature there to be seen. This is what we was explaining we have to deal with these people.
I'm absolutely fucking furious. I want this cunt banned permanently from this server. I do not want to lose my shit with lying bastard glurf believers. Why the hell should I have to define it when I've defined it 6 ways from Sunday already as being the horizontal plane of Earth's surface? For him to come in and say, no, it's not Earth's surface. What is this guy measuring on screen? He's the PhD with 1 million views describing this with the authority to say he's a scientist. And he's measuring the sun on Earth's surface with a shadow. I've defined it from the Navy handbook, and I've defined it from Tasadia and GCSE. These are educational bodies that are defining it as using Earth's surface. So this wanker comes in and says, number one, I'm not a globe believer. Lying bastard. Absolutely without question, glurf. That would be a globe Earth believer who's come here to lie to my audience and say it's not the surface when it's been defined as the surface 6 ways from Sunday. So what does he do? Comes in to undermine me by lying to my live audience. So I'm going to ask Righteous Force, have this, what's his name? Nexa permanently banned. Why in unholy fuck should we have to deal with this shit? Lying bastards coming and lying to our faces when we're defining what these things are, so they can come in and undermine me. How fucking dare you? Never return. I want this person permanently banned. Why should he come here to undermine what we've just spent an hour covering?
He shouldn't. His name is New Moon, too. You know who he is.
Well, he should be permanently banned. I don't want to ever talk to him again. Lying cunt. Get the fuck out of my show. How dare you? Piece of shit.
Yeah, we don't need to speak to him, really, but it was good just to have him prove what we're saying for 2 minutes. That's all we needed him for, to say that, pointing out that the surface of Earth isn't being used. Well, everybody's just been listening to that show in great detail of yourself, Nathan, us lot, and the PhD explaining that's exactly what's happening. And this is what you've got to do to glue.
Yeah, I've just defined it. The altitude angle is the vertical angle between the projection of the sun's rays on the horizontal plane of Earth's surface. What's this wanker cunt coming to tell my audience? It's not Earth's surface. Cunt! Get the fuck out of my show.
The PhD did not just explain it. Hold on one deck. He didn't explain. He drew it out and described everything that he was drawing. And he said, let's draw the ground. And he draws out a straight line.
Can someone get a message to my moderator of the server, that would be Righteous Force, and ask that Nexa and New Moon be permanently banned from this server? Why should I be put in this state of absolute outrage by lying bastards who believe they're on a globe? Why should we have to have the axioms and definitions violated by liars? Why should we have to put up with it? I mean, algorithmically, we'll have this type of behaviour favouritised by search engines. That's what actually happens. Liars get promoted above the truth and fact, even when their own measurements are defined as from surface level to be angles. They'll still lie and say, no, we're measuring from curve level. No, it's not the surface. Lying bastards.
So the elevation has nothing to do with the surface?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Is that what they're arguing?
Yes, that's what he said. Elevation being what? From the middle of space? No, elevation means specifically from the surface. It's an elevation angle measurement. Oh, it's not from the surface. I hate these people. Like, I despise this man. Why? Why should I be left in such fury? Because liars come to piss me off in the middle of a live show. Anyway, with that, I say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow.
These idiots, because this is where they're in a psychological dilemma. This is what they're doing to themselves. This is what they have to do. It's crazy, but at least if anybody's watched that in all sincerity and can see exactly what the PhD's saying, and then they hear someone come in and say, well, it's got nothing to do with the surface of Earth. I mean, that's just pathetic. Yeah, go away. You don't deserve to be on here. You're an idiot. So see you later, mate.
Yeah, permanently ban this complete cunt I'm just so pissed off. I can't quite frigging believe my ears. After spending an hour, well, where is it showing Earth? In the diagrams and definitions that we've gone through? Oh, it's not Earth's surface. Wanker. Gotta lie. That's all they can do is lie. From this point forward, their only option is to lie. Yeah? Now, the whole point of us covering this guy on screen now was so I didn't have to get furious with lying bastards like SciManDans. So what do? Send a lying bastard in to lie about how it's not the surface? Oh, really? So we're talking about shadows in space? Disingenuous, lying glurf scum. That's what I spent Go on, Neil.
Go ahead. I was going to say, I kind of agree with one deck. Next time we should get him on and say, okay, since you're going to try to rebut this PhD, let me see how you're going to do it. I want you to draw it all out just like he did, but using your surface.
It's just got to say it's not the surface level that forms part of the angle. So they've just got to lie. Why? To piss me off, that's why. If he was in front of me, I'd knock his fucking teeth out, frankly. I'd be like, you're going to lie to my face? Well, then you're going to lose a few fucking teeth.
I was just about to say before he came in, why argue that when you could just spit the fact?
Yeah, he'd be swallowing his own teeth, I'm telling you.
That's it. That's an Italian neighborhood terminology. Knock your teeth down your throat. I like that one.
Why? Why come and lie to my live audience after an hour of us going through it in no uncertain times, really explicit, really getting down to the nitty gritty? So he comes along and says it's not the surface. Just scum. That's what you've got to do. That's what you globe Earth believers have got to do in this circumstance, where we point out how Earth is measured. All you can do is lie.
Well, his first words were, I'm looking for measurements or something like that. Or where are the Earth measurements? So after spending a whole show breaking it down, you come and you ask a stupid question like that?
He's just trying to undermine what we do. You know, like, why would we even entertain you here anymore? Get lost, never return, you disingenuous scumbag. Maybe that's the point, pissing me off to the point where I'm absolutely furious. Maybe that was his only intention.
Yeah, that's it. 100%. That's all they want to do is get you angry, so you're swearing, cursing up and down. Got Paula in the chat saying, here's where I tune out. Can't blame her because she gets offended with the language, and I understand that. But everything was going smooth until this retard came in with something stupid like that.
Yeah, that's the game. And why? Because we need to make this into a game, don't we? If you're a baller, I mean. Oh, well, you're saying we measure Earth flat. Well, let's have a little game where I just say it's not Earth anymore. Because that's not going to piss you off royally.
Well, before you started the show, Nathan, we were talking about it a little bit. It's really devastating. It's devastating to them. And that's why all of this crazy stuff is going on. Because this ends it. It's over. They can never recover. And if the world finds out about this, what are they going to do? If we could educate the population, what are they going to do?
Come along and say it's not really the ground we're measuring when we measure the ground. have a train wreck mic with distortion on it. Everything that guy did was custom designed to piss me off. That's it. That's all they've got left. Just try and irritate Nathan. Essentially a glorified ad hominem attack. That's what that was.
Did you get through the whole video?
There isn't anything else to cover, really. He's just covering...
6.3 degrees. Now, suppose you punch this into your calculator, and instead of getting a number like this, 56.3, you get a number 0.983.
Covering radians.
That just means that your calculator is in radians mode, so it's giving you that angle in radians instead of the angle in degrees. So when you hit that arc tangent button, you want to make sure your calculator is in whichever mode you want the answer in.
That's it, basically. There's nothing else. So once again, that was How Education. And the video is called How to Find the Angle of Elevation of the Sun Using Shadows of Objects, Physics and Math. That was the name of the video.
And he's a PhD, correct?
Yeah.
That's it.
Hi, my name's Derek Hullinger. I have a PhD in physics, and I'm...
And what does New Moon or Nexus, whatever his name, have? What does he have a PhD in?
Pissing Nathan off. PhD in irritating flat earthers. In this case, me.
How's it going otherwise? Getting a lot accomplished?
Yeah, not bad. Can't grumble.
Good.
Oh, I've got an interesting anecdote. So somebody in the comments was saying, it sounds like sour grapes when you say that QE and what's his name's work was Snoozeville.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah? And I was like, well, yeah, it is. I'm very bitter about this, obviously. So yeah, you're right. Of course. But you're like, okay, fair enough. Then I added a comment, but it's also true. You know, I was listening to it back and going, God, this is boring. And there's a reason why I was tuning out while they were doing it and playing video games, because it was boring. On, I think it was Friday night or Thursday night, I forget which, my wife's transcribing the videos, the recordings, and I'm in the other room because I just end up getting annoyed with it, listening back to them on the videos. So I detach myself to a certain degree. Anyway, I can hear like the sound of their voices going round and round in a loop. I'm like, what's going on? So I come into the lounge and my wife's slumped over her own computer, fast asleep while she's doing it. I'm like, are you okay? Are you okay? She's like, oh, I fell asleep. It was really boring.
That's funny. That's going to piss them off when they hear that. Because you know they're listening. Hi, Adam. Hi, QE.
You thieving pair of cunts. Yeah, just so they're aware, their swan song, in quotes, that they thought my book would be, has now turned into them being a thieving pair of Judases. Yeah? A pair of pariahs that will go down in history as a thieving pair of scumbags who tried to extort their friend for money and then lied about it constantly. Oh, we didn't want money. If we were to sit down with Nathan, we'd tell him that we don't, future tense, want any money. Really, after swearing and shouting about the percentage you were going to be negotiating with my publicist. Really? That sounds like complete lies, you pair of thieving cunts. That's what they'll go down in history as. John Stunyer will go down in history as a thieving bastard. Because that's precisely what he is. He offered to help me and then tried to steal my intellectual property by way of extortion by keeping a fifth draft and suggesting that the fourth draft was my publicist's work and that they'd written a whole new book. And because, quote, from chapter 4 it was a whole new book, they were shocked and shaken when they realised that I would actually edit their work. So in their minds, they can get rid of half a book and call it a new book that's theirs. But me wanting to edit my own book would be outrageous. Why would they be doing any other work? These fucking retard thieves are delusional spastics, the pair of them. And that is how history will remember them, as thieving bastards. So you wanted your swan song to be my book, did you? Well, unfortunately, being the thieving bastards that you are, that's how you'll be remembered. Because that's what you are. Thieving bastards who tried to extort your own friend in his greatest time of need, at his most poor and most sick. You decided to extort money from him with his own fucking material. So that's how you'll be remembered. That's what people will remember you as. Yeah? Our opponents will pounce all over this, and this is how you'll go down in history. As a thieving cunt. John Stunyer, the thieving cunt. That's how he'll be remembered. Adam, what's his name? Some fucking nobody. Jumped up, trumped up secretary. Yeah, you'll be remembered as a thieving cunt too. Thought my book would be your swan song. No, you'll just be remembered as thieving, extorting bastards. Because that's exactly what you are. Were past tense. Swan song? No, you'll just be remembered as thieves. Who fucked over your own friend. In case you can't tell, this is very near the surface. Which is why I lost my shit with that guy in the live show. I'm still very bitter about all of this.
I kind of figured that. Yeah, something along the line changed because I remember we were all supposed to be helping you because we're your friends. We were helping you get a better book, a more precise book, a book that'll never be forgotten. One of the greatest flat earth books, if not the. Somewhere along the lines, I don't know what happened.
They spent so much time sniffing their own farts that they decided that that needed to be theirs, their help for me to produce my book. And what I like is reading the audience comments in this regard, where they say, what a pair of idiots. They could have very easily piggybacked off the back of this and had their own extremely successful book. But now what are they going to get? Well, they'll go down in history as thieves and con men. What's a con man? Somebody uses confidence to trick somebody. Well, in this case, we'll go and listen to all the clips of Adam saying, your book will be wonderful. Your book will sell a load of copies. What have we built your book around? What's the skeleton of your book? Well, it's about Nathan Oakley's story in Flat Earth Debate. That's what they're describing when they're conning me, lying to me, so they can extort from me at a later date after lying to me. So that's how they'll remember. Their swan song will be that of liars, cheats, and con men. Precisely what they are.
Yeah, me and Brian were talking about that. A few other people too said, what a piggyback book that would have been. He could have took his material, scientific proofs of the creator, right? And destruction of evotards, into flat earth. I mean, what a book. I think even Flatsy said, yeah, that's a book I would love to help on.
Yeah.
But that's never going to come.
No, what will happen now if they publish a book? All they'll get is accused of it being plagiarised. Is this the book you stole from Nathan? Will be the first question they get asked if they publish anything, won't it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, well, way to shoot yourselves in the face, you pair of idiots. Way to go down in history as pariahs and Judases. Moreover, way to screw your friend over. Also, John Stunyer lied, like you suggested, no offence to you, Neil, but you suggested I should lie. Just give them what they want. Concede and then double-cross them. Quote, John Stunyer, I acquiesce, it's not worth our friendship, end quote. What did he acquiesce to? Oh, absolutely nothing. It was a complete lie. Just pretending to acquiesce. Con man.
Yeah, it's the Sicilian in me. Can't help it. But, yeah, I'm glad you didn't. Listen to Ted. Ted's got the best advice for you. I agree 100%. Just stay true to what you've been doing. Gotta work it all out. I was angry, so like you, I wanted you to get what's yours back so you can continue working on it and get a book out there. So I was like, by any means necessary. You're a great actor, Nathan. Just freaking tell him, look, I'll give you whatever you want. This is not worth our friendship. What are we scribbling? You know, you could have really played it up good too.
No,
And
instead,
then just stuck him right in the back.
well, instead, that's what John Stunyer did. I acquiesce. It's not worth our friendship. End quote. Complete lie.
Yeah, and Brian said he didn't mean that. He said he should have been more clear. What are you kidding me? It only means one thing.
Acquiescence, definition, the acceptance of something without protest.
Yeah. Great.
Acquiescence is the acceptance or agreement of something without protest, often silently or reluctantly. It can mean giving consent by not objecting or quietly agreeing to a situation, even if you don't fully support it. In a legal context, it can also mean the neglect to assert a right for so long that it is considered abandoned. So in a legal context, it means he's abandoned that which he was trying to acquire. I acquiesce. Lying fuckstick. You belong in hell, John Stunyer. You lying piece of shit. Yeah, I can look at what acquiesce means, John. You said you acquiesced. You didn't. You're a lying cunt. And that's what you'll be remembered as. A lying cunt, cheating, thieving con man. Because that's what you are.
I'm still in shock about it. I can't believe these are things being thrown at QE and Adam. It's like, am I in Bizarro world? Like, when did this freaking happen? Jeez.
Nathan, when the book is released, do you reckon you'll have a website alongside it to promote it?
Say again.
When your book is released, do you reckon you'll have a website alongside it to promote it?
Yeah, my publisher's got one. Okay,
it's just the QE's website is very good. You have to admit for what it is. So it might be worth if you can have an equivalent of your own. I was just thinking when the book comes out, that's a good reason to have one, and then you can cram everything in it that you want.
That's a good idea. I like it. Had morons in Earth Awakenings the other day saying, Nathan said he's got a book. Now he doesn't have a book. So which one is it? Very frustrating.
He could come here and ask, right?
No, it's like I don't want to go in any place anymore because right away then people are going to start harassing me. I'm not so much in 24/7 anymore, but when I went in Earth Awakenings, yeah, that's it. And they're going to try to tell me what's going on. I said, do you want an answer or are you going to tell me what's going on? You're asking me something, I'm going to tell you. No, but you want to tell me. Well, I heard Nathan say he's got a book. So if he's got a book, why don't he just release it?
Someone get a message to Righteous Force?
I mean, I can, but I figured one of the guys from Discord are going to do it. If you need, I can send them a message.
I never want to hear that guy's voice ever again.
What was his name today?
Can't remember.
Nexus?
Something like that. Why should we have to deal with that?
You shouldn't have to deal with it. And the thing is, we've dealt with him many times before. He's just a time waster and somebody that's coming in and just to get you angry. That's it.
Well, he succeeded.
Yeah, no kidding. But that's their only intention. I mean, if he came in seriously and could point us to an error that the PhD has made and then take us through it, but they're just coming with those trigger words that he came in with, nah, he's only out to do one thing. Get you off the topic and swearing at him.
I always wondered with SciManDans, is he just really thick or is he a disingenuous liar? And I think today's confirmed it for me. He's definitely a liar, as well as being really thick.
So both. Right, if there's anything else pressing, speak now, or I'm going to round out.
There's a tiny little diss track. It's only 14 seconds in main text chat.
Say again.
Tiny little diss track for QE and Morgan.
You made a diss track. Can someone grab
Wait,
it?
it's 14 seconds. So
14
it's not really
second diss
I
track.
guess.
Can someone grab it? Is it easy to grab?
Yeah, man.
I'm on it now. Give me a sec.
Main text chat. Oh, I got it. I think I can play it.
QE and Adam Merkin creeping in the bush while Oakley's twerking. A thief in a line while sniffing their own farts. Everyone knows they're thieving, retarded tarts. Thieving comment cunts, lying, thieving comment cunts. And no backbone on these runs.
Awesome. With that, I'm going to say a massive, huge, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ Panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ Panels. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
QE and Adam Merkin creeping in the bush while Oakley's twerking. A thief in a line while sniffing their own farts. Everyone knows they're thieving, retarded tarts. Thieving comment cunts, lying, thieving comment cunts. And no backbone on these runs.